Greetings! Bluetti just released the world's first sodium-ion battery portable power station to a lot of fanfare and excitement. It's called the Pioneer Na. But is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
First, I need to explain the name. When Bluetti first told me a new product was coming called the Pioneer Na, I thought it meant Na as in not available or was like a placeholder name. Then I found out it was a sodium-ion battery, and Na then made sense as Na is sodium on the periodic table. So it's pronounced Na and not nah. I would have called it the Sodium 900 or something catchy that sounds like it belongs on a racetrack, but I am not Bluetti's CEO. A bit of a backstory here before we begin. Feel free to skip to the specs if you're in a hurry. Back in January 21, while I was camping in the desert of Quartzsite, Arizona during their annual Big Tent and RV show, several representatives from Bluetti came to my campsite and showed me a preview video of their new top secret sodium-ion based power station that was debuting that week in CES in Vegas. Now this was in 2021. It was then supposed to release to the public that spring. And I didn't think much of it at the time because I'm one of those I'll believe it when I see it types. Sodium-ion chatter was all the rage back during the pandemic, in part due to global shortages and the ethics of cobalt mining. Once the world went back to normal, the chatter about sodium batteries kind of died out until recently. The hot selling point of sodium batteries versus lithium is fairly simple. Sodium's everywhere, including in the oceans. Lithium is a tiny fraction of the Earth's crust. Mining is typically pretty environmentally destructive and expensive. There's only one active lithium mine in the entire United States, and that's Silver Peak in Nevada. And the reason there's only one is due to a mix of strict EPA regulations and environmental protests every time a developer even hints at the idea of opening a lithium mine. The United States of America has some of the biggest lithium deposits in the world, but we can't touch them. This means the US has to rely on the rest of the world for lithium. When the supply chain took that big punch to the face in 2020, there was an immediate surge of interest in alternative chemistries. Sodium being cheap and easy to mine and being a heavier metal than lithium makes it inherently more stable, meant it was a good technology to bring back from the dead. See, sodium-ion batteries are not new. They were developed in the 1970s but weren't considered a really good alternative or as economically feasible as lithium-ion, which already had a head start in the market. The problem with sodium-ion back then was building a battery that was actually good. The early technology wasn't very good. It wasn't stable. It didn't have a long cycle life at all. Sodium has a much lower energy density than lithium, meaning the batteries were a lot larger and a lot heavier, and that's a pretty hard sell. It's like saying, hey, our batteries are cheaper to make and better for the environment, but hey, they suck and they're huge and heavy. Buy now.
Shop smart. Shop S-smart. You got that?
So fast forward 50 years, there's been enough interest in batteries that can charge and run at lower temperatures, is safer than cobalt-based lithium-ion, cheaper to make, more economically and environmentally friendly. And now there's a race to a finish line to see who can develop a better sodium battery. Here's where we get back to the Bluetti story because I think I kind of know what happened. In 2021, sodium-ion batteries were basically first generation. They still had a lot of technical hurdles to tackle, one being a short life cycle. The early ones had 1,000 cycles at best. The other being energy density. When you're trying to sell a portable power station like this that competes with lithium iron phosphate that's already several decades ahead, has been proven, established, rocks 4,000 cycles, is stable because it's made of iron, and it's already cobalt-free, so it's ethically sound, it doesn't make sense to pump millions into R&D for a new battery tech when what you have already works. You basically have to wait for the market to need an alternative to what's already available to make it financially feasible. Over the past several years, it seems whoever Bluetti purchases their battery cells from has finally nailed the manufacturing process for new second-gen sodium-ion cells, and that's what's in here. That resolves the cycling problem and kind of sort of fixes the energy density issue. I'll explain more on that in a bit. Now on to the specs. So here it is, the world's first sodium-ion power station. rocking a 900 watt-hour battery rated at 4,000 cycles to 70% capacity. And yeah, that's not quite lithium iron phosphate territory, as most of them can do 4,000 cycles to 80% all day, or well beyond 6,000 for EV grade, but this is still far better than any cobalt-based NMC lithium ion cell technology, so that is a big win. Now here's where things get a bit weighty. This little 900 watt-hour power station is approximately 13 by 13 by 10 inches and rolls in at a chunky 35 pounds. Now we're going to cover the bulk of the matter here in a bit. Now what about the design? Well, when you look at this power station, you can immediately tell it looks like one of Bluetti's previous generation products. The screen is one of the dead giveaways because they aren't using their latest screen tech for this model. It does show all the important info like input, output watts, time to charge, discharge, with battery percent and icons. So it does the job just fine. Now what about the inverter? The inverter in this is an odd size choice. It is a 1500 watt pure sine with 4 20 amp outlets. That means appliances up to 12.5 amps only. This model does include that power lifting mode so that resistive appliances like heaters up to 2250 watts can run, but that setting can't be used most of the time as it can damage appliances. As for ways to charge, unusual for power stations in 2025, Bluetti's actually including all 3 cables in the box to charge all 3 ways. You first have, of course, AC charging, which you can do from a generator or from your wall, maxed out at 1400 watts, good for topping this up in under 1 hour. There's also standard and quiet modes that make it quieter but charge a lot slower. We'll try those out. Now for solar charging, you get a single MPPT solar controller that runs 12 to 60 volts at 10 amps, 500 watts max, through what I hope to never see again, which was an 8mm barrel plug input. This makes me feel like the product was definitely designed years ago, since Bluetti moved to XT60 connectors in 2023. The 500 watt solar input on a perfect day can top up the battery in about 2.5 hours, assuming it's above freezing. Last and least is 12 volt charging from a vehicle with the included adapter, also plugs into the same 8mm socket. That takes about a dozen hours. Now, what about 12 volt outputs? You get one single 12 volt vehicle accessory socket rated at 10 amps, regulated at 13.6 volts. As for USB support, it's also basic, offering a single 100 watt power delivery USB-C and 4 standard USB-A 5 volt ports. Now these are limited to 15 watts per pair, so you're going to be slow charging those dinosaurs like it's 1999. Now I was blown away when I saw this next feature. Further proof this is an older design, because what we have on top is an actual real-to-life 15 watt wireless charging pad, and it says NA on there, which is kind of cool. Now I never thought I'd see another one of these again, as nobody uses them anymore. And that's a shame, because I only charge my phone wirelessly. Now as for other features, the NA does offer a 20 millisecond UPS feature built in, Bluetooth app support, no Wi-Fi, but yes, the wireless can be disabled. You can turn Bluetooth off and it will not transmit anything. And of course, the real reason this product exists at all is the ability to charge below freezing down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And of course, we're going to test that soon. As for the warranty, Bluetti offers a 5-year standard manufacturer's warranty on this product. And of course, I took the Bluetti NA into my secret lab, performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it. Here are the results. First, a disclaimer, I had a very limited time with this product, about 5 days start to finish, so I had to skip the DC tests. Let's review the AC results though. As for the results, the AC battery capacity test has scored 840 watt hours out of 900 for a fantastic 93%. Now, it's been a while since Bluetti scored this high, no doubt due to the different battery chemistry that's more robust at warmer temperatures. Bluetti does say that you will lose up to 20% or so of the battery capacity as the temperature drops to 0. Now that's not unusual for any kind of battery, but I wanted to make note that since you only have 900 watt hours to start with, losing 20% of that when it's below freezing might be a big deal. Now what about phantom load or parasitic drain? Now for AC consumption, I left the unit on with the inverter enabled and no load for 12 hours, and it used 10% of the battery according to what it said on the screen. 10% of 900 watt hours is about 90 watt hours wasted, or approximately 8 watts idle consumption for the 1500 watt inverter. Not bad. When recharged via solar port, the 8mm, back to 100%, it took 163 watt hours at 8 amps to recharge the battery according to my battery meter with shunt. Since it used 163 watt hours to recharge instead of 90, we divide those two to get 55% efficiency of the MPPT controller. That means 45% of the power going into the solar port is wasted to heat. Now you see why I decided to change how I do this test, because going by how much power it takes to recharge the battery through the MPPT can be wildly inaccurate if the controller isn't efficient, and this one is definitely not. So that means if you left the inverter on at 8 watts of idle consumption, it would totally kill the battery in about 4 3/4 days. Note that in the spec from Bluetti themselves, they say it uses 9 watts at AC idle, so it seems like my results were slightly better than expected, or probably within the margin of error. 8 watts of consumption out of a 1500 watt inverter is fine, but 55% efficiency of the solar controller is atrocious. Now, I'm not sure why it's so bad, and I wanted to actually run that test a second time to verify the results, because that's usually what I do when I come up with something crazy like that. But I simply didn't have the time to do another full day of testing. So just kind of take that MPPT result with a grain of salt. Now, I'm always asked how long stuff's going to run, compensating for usable capacity. You can pause this chart I'm going to put on screen to see approximately how long common appliances will run on this particular unit. Here are the results of the testing. Sine wave check under load. We scored 119 volts, 60 hertz. That was a pass. Now the inverter in this is rated 1500 watts. We were able to push 2100 watts out of it for just under 5 seconds. That was a pass. Cooling ability heat soak test. We ran it at its 1500 watt rated capacity for at least 5 minutes. It passed with no funky smells, taste, flavors, or sounds. The inverter fan noise at maximum decibels was a moderate 52 decibels under full load, so not quiet, not loud. So this has a 1500 watt pure sine inverter. Will it run my 5000 BTU air conditioner? So let's find out. Going on high cool. Yeah, starts up no problem. The solar degenerator heat gun test. Let's see. That's all the way up on maximum. It pulls about 1500 watts. No problem. Now here's a test I'd really be surprised if it passed, because this pulls a lot of power. This is a 15 amp saw, but let's find out. Nope, it actually overloaded the inverter. So it will not run a 15 amp saw. Now as for the max charge rate on AC power, we were able to charge this Bluetti on the fastest setting at 1400 watts, which is what was expected. At standard, we were able to charge at 450 watts, and then at quiet, 200 watts. Now, those latter two settings, I didn't really get much noise at all out of the fan, so I don't really know why there's really a difference in those two charge rates. Now, the claimed DC solar input range is 12 to 60 volts, 10 amps at 500 watts through the 8mm port. As tested, we're able to get 95 watts at 12 volts, 185 watts at 24 volts, 480 watts at 48 volts, and 500 watts at 60 volts. We were able to push it as hard as 64 volts at 500 watts before it failed. Now, as for the charging fan noise at AC maximum rate, it was a moderate 51 decibels, but at the AC minimum charge rate, it was a pretty much silent 42 decibels. This does support simultaneous charging of AC and solar at the same time. You can actually input 500 watts of solar plus 1400 watts of AC at the same time. The test everyone loves to hate, the UPS test, this claims to have a 20 millisecond UPS mode in, which is a little on the slower side. We're going to find out for the first time. While I have a music video playing, the battery charging simultaneously, the inverter is powering this entire system. All I have to do is press this button and it disconnects the grid power from the Pioneer, and we're going to see if it locks up or blanks out or misbehaves in any way, shape, or form. So place your bets. 3, 2, 1. Nope, it seems to be okay. It's still going strong, no problem. I'll turn it back on. Okay, it's back on. Off again. Yep, no problems. That passed the test. As for the DC output at max rate, we're able to pull 10 amps at 11.6 volts out of the 12 volt socket. And that 12 volt socket is regulated at 13.6 volts. We did test the single USB-C output, and that was actually able to do 100 watts, and that was a pass. Now, we did test the wireless charging pad on top. That also charged at 15 watts. That was a pass. Musician's favorite amp interference test. This is where we find out, is the inverter clean or dirty? Is it good for ham radios, amplifiers, stuff like that? Does it make any buzzy, clicky sounds coming out of the speaker? No, I haven't done this test yet. It could go either way. This does seem to be an older design product, and older products did not pass this. Cross your fingers. Let's hope it does. That would make it a pretty solid product. So let's find out. I'm going to turn the inverter on, and we'll hear. Wah, wah. Yep, it actually does have a buzz, and just to prove to everybody that it is not anything else, I'll move my phone away. I also moved the power station away. I can move it as far away as I like. This if it fails, it fails. You hear that buzz? Bzzz. That's not what you want to hear coming out of an amplifier, so it does fail this test. Now, does that mean that you can't use this for an amplifier? No, you can. Just be aware you're going to get that buzz out of your speakers. And imagine this, a giant 1,000-watt amplifier, like a wall of speakers, how loud that buzz would be. Now, for the EMS test, I did turn off Bluetooth, so there was no wireless. As soon as I powered up, it rated 70, which is high. That was without AC or DC turned on, which was weird. Adding DC made no change. Turning on the AC inverter raised it to 82, which is high. Now let's do some low temperature charging tests and see what happened. Okay, so I've had the Pioneer in this freezer for about 20 hours. It currently says it's 7 degrees, but I have the freezer, as you can see, set to -4. Now, if you look at the app, you can see that the average temperature is about 6 degrees. So it says right there. So we should be pretty close to testing temperature. The Pioneer NA just came out of the deep freezer. So you can see there, it's still below freezing on the outside. Now the inside is going to be, should be somewhere around 5 degrees, 6 degrees Fahrenheit. It says at 6 degrees Fahrenheit, it will either not charge or charge very slowly. So let's plug it into the wall and find out if it's going to charge at all. Now, if we are charging at 145 watts, now I do have it set in turbo mode, so obviously if this was at room temperature, we'd be charging at 1400. So it's charging at 10% of its stated charge rate at what should be somewhere below 10 degrees Fahrenheit for the internal cells. So Bluetti gave me a 3-page document, and basically all this information in here is about how they wanted me to test it, different capacities for different temperatures, different charge rates for different temperatures. So basically I had 5 days to do all the time lapses, all the editing, all the testing. Basically I obviously don't have the time to do all this stuff. So what I did was I put this thing in the freezer. Oh, look, the charge rate just went up. I wanted to see if it was still chargeable at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, because according to this chart, and I'll put this chart up on screen because you're not going to be able to read it here. It says at -15 degrees centigrade, which is 5 degrees Fahrenheit, it should charge at 132 watts. And below 20 C, which is going to be below 0, it's not chargeable. So I wasn't able to get it that cold in 20 hours. I can't wait another day. I basically have to get this done. But as the product warms up and as the battery warms up from charging, it should start increasing the speed. And we just saw it went from 140 something to 170 something, and now it's back down to 140 something. So it's going back and forth right now because probably the temperature sensor is flipping back and forth between 2 different modes. So I'll show you this temperature chart on screen so you can see what you can expect when this thing is at a certain temperature. Now, it's designed to charge below freezing, obviously. Designed to charge all the way down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything obviously that cold or lower, it's not going to charge. You can still discharge. Now, let's go ahead and do a discharge test, because it does say that the inverter efficiency goes down to about 88%. Only at below -25 degrees centigrade does the inverter itself get turned down to only 300 watts output. It says I should be able to pull a full 1500 watt load, even though the battery is literally ice cold. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's unplug it from the wall. Yeah, 1500 watts. Heat gun's working just fine. I'll probably shoot a little heat on the inside there to warm it up. So the fans still kick on and everything like it should. It's definitely blowing air. Very cold air is blowing out of the fans right now. So yeah, it looks like this Bluetti passed this test. It's still charging at well below freezing, which is really the only selling point for a sodium-ion battery, because it's larger, bigger, heavier. You still get lithium iron phosphate cycles, but you can charge it below freezing for people that need it. One last thing to note while I'm warming this thing back up, I have the heater plugged into the inverter, so I'm letting it warm up internally and blowing some hot air through the fans, see if I can get the inside battery to warm up a bit. Do note that when you have a power station with a sodium ion battery, it does derate. You have to understand that there is going to be a lower capacity. So at 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, you lose about 12% capacity of the battery. As you go down, you get colder and colder down to minus 25 degrees centigrade or close to that 0 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when the battery is about 20% less efficient. So you lose anywhere from 12 to 20% of the battery depending on how cold this thing is below freezing. So you have to factor that into consideration because this only has a 900 watt hour battery to begin with. You're not 20% off of that. This thing is going to be a tiny battery, and then the inverter loses efficiency as well when it's cold. So you'll lose up to 10% or a little bit more than that efficiency when the inverter's cold as well. So factor that in. You're maybe get 600 watt hours out of this in the end if you're using this in really bitter cold weather. Okay, FYI, if you want to warm this thing up really quick, run the maximum load on the inverter. That sends a lot of heat through the inverter. Like, it gets pretty hot. It's well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit coming out of the fan on this side. So the intake's on this side and the outtake's on this side. I actually just blocked the fan for a minute or two. It significantly warmed up the battery while the inverter was running this heater. And now I'm up to charging at 232 watts. And it says, according to the document, that at freezing, your maximum charge rate is 245 watts. So I'm almost there, so I'm assuming that the battery is now almost at freezing or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It warms up pretty quickly when you're using the inverter, so that's really the key to these batteries. If you're going to use them in really cold weather, if you're using the battery, you're using the inverter, it's going to keep it warm inside. It could be 5 degrees below zero in this room, but if you're using this and you're getting it hot, and especially if you block that exhaust vent, that heat stays in there, warms up the battery, allows the battery to be more efficient, allows it to run the inverter better. So the faster you warm up the battery, the more efficient your battery is going to be. It'll have a better capacity, the better your inverter capacity is going to be, better everything all around, because power stations like room temperature. That's the way batteries, inverters, everything likes to be somewhere around room temperature, a little bit cooler. So that's the key to effective use of this product. Now, all results did fall within expectations, except the unit did fail the amp interference test, and the MPPT efficiency results of 55% raised some eyebrows. The unit also couldn't run a 15 amp saw, but again, that was expected because the inverter can only do 12.5 amps. So what do I think about the Bluetti Na? Okay, so the biggest selling point of this product was the low temperature charging ability, and that did pass. So yeah, it does work. I'm still not impressed because all these years, tech folks have been posting articles all over the internet, making all these videos saying how sodium ion is my favorite word, game changer. And then in 5 years, the lithium mines are all going to close. The world's going to be a bigger, better, greener place while we gleefully charge our Model A sodium ion Teslas super low below freezing in mere seconds. Well, we found out something new today about charging sodium ion below freezing, didn't we? It's dog-ass slow. Will anybody really consider charging at 10% of normal speed when it's below freezing as something acceptable? So a 20-minute charge now takes 200. Who's really going to buy that? Maybe a polar bear in winter, but in winter, the sun's only up for a few hours. So forget about solar charging. It's going to take up to 6 hours when it's cold. So you see where I'm going here. Well, it's nice to see new battery tech, and I'm really excited that there's something new out finally. This isn't changing anyone's game, at least not in this technology debut. Remember how I said earlier I need to see it to believe it? Well, sodium ion batteries now rank with me next to those new solar panels that are coming out soon that can charge at night. Yeah, a real game changer. Okay, riddle me this. Do you think when AI invades robots in 5 years and they start mass producing themselves to take over the planet, they're going to be using greener, cheaper sodium ion batteries that are larger and heavier and take longer to charge? Hell no, they're going to be lighting the forests on fire and clubbing baby seals on the head to get every last ounce of lithium on land and sea. They're going to melt down those sodium ion factories to make more practical lithium batteries for their Terminator bots. The only way us humans are going to be able to fight back is by like throwing ice cubes at them in hopes they can't recharge when they're cold. Hey, that sounds like a pretty awesome sci-fi thriller. James Cameron, give me a call. Let's talk. That's the precursor to my next gripe with sodium ion tech. The size and weight of this product. It's ridiculous. Okay, let's compare the Pioneer NA to Bluetti's own Elite 100 V2. Look how easy I'm picking this up, first of all. It's nice and lightweight, and look at the size difference, okay? So let's compare these two. This is a 1,000 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery. This is a 900 watt sodium ion. This has an 1,800 watt inverter. This has a 1,500 watt inverter. The Elite is 13 by 9 by 10 inches, 25 pounds. The sodium ion power station with its smaller battery inverter is 4 inches larger and 10 pounds heavier. That's like LFPing your LFP battery. Remember how we made the jump from lightweight cobalt-based lithium-ion batteries to the heavier lithium iron phosphate a few years back? We traded a larger size and more weight for longer life cycles and a safer chemistry that has less thermal runaway. You remember because Bluetti was one of the very first to do it, and now we're doing it again. But this time we're trading even larger and heavier for a mildly shorter cycle life, the ability to slow charge below freezing while slightly increasing the safety margin, as it's kind of debatable still if sodium ion batteries are safer than lithium iron phosphate. That's still a debate out on that. Because sodium batteries, depending on the electrolyte they use, don't suffer as much from thermal runaway when punctured, but the really good lithium iron phosphate batteries don't either, and that depends on construction. So is that trade-off in bulk for sodium batteries worth it? Maybe so in a fixed installation where the batteries are stored outdoors. They could take advantage of the cold charging ability without burning any extra power to warm the batteries. For example, an alternative to Bluetti's own B300K that could be used outdoors and charged below freezing. Call them the B300 NA. That makes complete sense to me. Now, as for using this portly sodium tech for a portable product, I'm going to let you decide on that. Now, as for the upsides of the Pioneer NA as a power station in 2025, well, it makes me feel a bit nostalgic, and I'm not sure who chose this baby blue with the unreadable orange font on the front. Probably the same person that decided on the 8mm plug for solar, because that's going to eventually break. Well, it has a wireless charger, and did I tell you it charges below freezing, right? Yay. Now, for those of you that think I'm being too harsh on this product, let me give you my final thought. This is the world's first sodium ion power station. The first. Now, we all know what happens with the first to tech. After a couple of years, it usually dramatically improves. So maybe that will be the case here. Maybe sodium batteries will go the way of the dodo. And for you Zoomers, that's an extinct bird. In a couple of years, it's possible sodium will live right next to lithium in certain markets, or it can return to where it came from, oblivion. Only time is going to tell. Now, for the record, I had planned to bust this thing open and do some real-world physical tests on these new sodium ion cells. Again, I didn't simply have the time to do it. It's also been raining for a week straight, and I had to get this video out on release day. So if you want to see this thing torture tested, I'll do it if I can get enough comments, so let me know below. All right, product price. This is where all that cost cutting that went into this product should prove useful. Sodium ion batteries, after all, are cheaper to make, significantly cheaper to make. I mean, they're made of salt. Salt is pennies per pound. Don't believe sodium ion is cheaper to make? I actually asked ChatGPT, which is AI for you guys that don't know already. I'll put the results up on screen. It says sodium ion batteries are 20 to 30% cheaper than LFP to make. The rest of this product is obviously recycled Bluetti tech from the past, so this has to be dirt cheap. Now, are you sitting down? No, really sit down this time. This new 900 watt-hour Bluetti NA special early bird price, you ready? It's not 70 cents per watt-hour. It's not 50 cents per watt-hour. It's not even 30 cents per watt-hour. It's $799. With my discount code brings it down to $735 for a final cost per watt-hour. Wait for it. 82 cents per watt hour. This makes it currently the most expensive product per watt hour that Bluetti sells in 2025. Confused? I was too when I did the math. Maybe these come preloaded with some Bitcoin inside? Oh, you know, I know what it is. Those of you that were old enough to remember Pentium processors from the 90s. Back in the day, some of those high-end processors cost thousands of dollars, and they were like in servers and workstations and stuff. They had a half a gram of gold inside them. Now the gold today is worth more than the processors. You can buy a giant bag full of those processors for $100, melt them down, get some gold. So maybe there's some gold in them thar Bluettis. Maybe it's like the new ZR1 Corvette, and you need to pay a premium for the privilege of owning one of the world's first sodium-ion power stations. I mean, come on, you could take this thing, show it off to your friends this winter, throw it in the snow and watch it charge. You'll have endless bragging rights. You're gonna be greener, saving the planet, while your poisonous neighbors are gonna envy your cold charging ability. They're gonna have to wait till the sun comes up. Or worse, keep their power stations indoors with them. Blasphemy, how quaint. Just think about it. It can all be yours for almost twice the price of the Bluetti Elite 100. And you get the fancy wireless charging pad to boot. So if you're interested, the link and discount code is going to be in the description of this video below. I'm going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen. You can type in along with a QR code you can scan if you're watching me on TV. It's going to take you on over to the Bluetti store page where you can check out the world's first sodium-ion power station, the Pioneer Na. Thanks for watching, and until next time.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.